What is good, everybody? My name is Valley here once again. Welcome back to the Messy Workbench. And I actually had to reshoot this video because the original video got corrupted because of bad SD card. Oh well, it gives me another chance to show you how I like to paint. Because I do like painting a lot. Starting off, this is a Zuru X-Shot kickback, which, or the, I forget the Adventure Force name, but it's a kickback. They're the same mold and all that. I've already done some prep on this. What I did is I actually scuffed it up with Scotch-Brite pad because I wanted to preserve the sort of textures of the plastic here. And then after I scuffed it up and everything to make the surface of the plastic really sort of toothy, I cleaned it off with some 91% isopropyl alcohol just to clean off the oils from my hands and such. Rubbing alcohol is very useful in a workshop setting because it's a decent solvent for most things, like getting oils off of the print bed or whatever. This is just something I got from Walmart. You know, you can buy, I think it costs about $5 or something like that for this big bottle, and it's lasted me a while. And after that, I hit it with some duplicolor vinyl dye, you know, standard sort of stuff we like using as base coats and primers and such. And yeah. I will be mostly painting with lacquer paints today. You see in this cup here I've got some lacquer thinner. It's not an optimal sort of container. You'd really want something more like a jar for that, but this is just some clean strip lacquer thinner. Again, this is a $15 can that I got from Walmart and it's lasted me for ages now. Because when airbrushing, a little bit goes a long way. Very, very much so. But yeah, and I also have a silicone baking cup that is meant for baking, but it works quite nice for paints because, like, say if something dries up, I can just crack it out and then use a little bit of solvent to get rid of that. Just a little bit, a drop or two of this with a paper towel, like I just did now. And yeah, I'm going to start off with the grip here. I'm gonna set this off to the side. Be careful about your thinners and stuff because this stuff will melt ABS. So just sort of try to keep it away from anything important that's ABS or something like that. And I think for the grip here, I want it to look sort of gunmetal-ish. So need to shake up my paints. This is a bottle of Gaia Notes. It's one of my favorite brands of sort of model paints and stuff. This is Gaia Notes Star Bright Iron. The Star series of paints are very, very sparkly, and they benefit a lot from being put over top of a somewhat glossy surface to really bring out their appearance. I'm going to take this, twist its cap after it's shaken up enough. And these bottles do have an extra insert to help make sure the paint is nice and liquid still. Not enough paint manufacturers do that. And just, it's a little bit thinned already, but I will want to thin it down a little bit more. I'm just going to drip a little bit into the container here. That's a little bit too much. I will pour a little bit of that back. Yeah, that's a little better. And just replace your sealer cap and then the main cap. And just set that up to the side because we will need it a little bit later, I believe. Just a little bit extra paint thinner. You can over thin things, but just be patient with it and you'll be able to mix it back thorough. And with things like lacquers, they dry fairly quickly, so all you need to do is wait a minute or two. Now for mixing, I like using bamboo skewers because they are cheap and they are easy. Here's one right now. And these are also really handy for pressing down tape. You just want to stir this a little bit. Stir around a little bit more. There we go. And now I've just got this Badger 350 airbrush. I'm going to pour it in here into the color cup. Now you can put the cap over the color cup, but since I'm going to be swapping colors quite fast, I don't really need to, and I'm not really filling all the way like it would for a large blaster. Now I just want to adjust the cone there. and I just test on my palm. It's good to wear gloves while you're painting as well because, you know, you don't want to get your hands absolutely covered in this stuff. And it's good for being able to manipulate the blasters and all that. So I'm just going to brush lightly. And I use a technique very similar to when I'm just using spray cans. I see a lot of people hold it farther away and then just kind of move in small circles, which is entirely a valid sort of method of painting. And I'm already out of paint here, because a little bit does go a long way, but whenever I put only so much in the color cup, it's kind of iffy. Now I'll just put a little bit more, because I actually have thinned this paint out to make it last a little bit longer in the container. But as you can see, it's already starting to be completely covered, and that was just a minute or so of light coats with the Star Bright iron on top of a slightly glossy black. And it looks absolutely gorgeous. Like, especially if you put something like a 2K clear. And this paint is not that expensive. There are similar paints that you can find, like testers and stuff around. But I personally really like Gaia Notes colors. That and Gravity colors. They are also very good. But they are a Spain-based paint company. They specialize in a lot of matches to actual car colors. I just smack it against my palm to get all the pigment and stuff that's collected on the bottom to the top and mixed. I'll just put a little bit more in here. Whoop. There you go. That actually was a little bit too much. I'll just leave this here with a small cap on there. Wipe that off. There you go. Put a few more drops of clear in there. Not clear. Of thinner. Mix it up a little bit. Now, using a silicone cup for mixing your paints might not be the best in terms of getting off the bottom. I think a metal container would be better. I'm just going to put some more thinner in there. Or glass even, because glass doesn't react. There we go. And now we just do the same thing on this side. It's a little bit... There we go. And I find it really handy to just grab a support in the shell. And very quickly, depending on what type of needle you have, I think this is a fine needle that I have in here, so it makes a much finer mist. But you can cover large areas fairly quickly using an airbrush, especially because it's very quick to dry, at least if you're using lacquers. I used to use a lot more acrylics, which if you buy from a company like Createx, their paints are predominantly airbrush acrylics, and there are ways you can thin them out and have them dry fairly quickly. But I personally like lacquers because it's a little bit stronger and better bonding to the surface, because with acrylics, obviously, it's going to be a little bit fragile until you clear coat it. Lacquers, you can basically just leave as is, though I still like using clear coats over top of it. And I think that is just about done. I'm going to swirl this thinner around in the cup here. And I'm going to pour it into the container here, just because that will help make it last a little bit longer. Cap that and put it away for next use. One bottle has lasted me for a long time. I do need to put another order in for the Star Bright Silver and stuff, which is the next color we're going to be using. And yeah, these grips are just about ready. I'll just set them off to the side, and after this we will go to clear coating, which, you know, is fairly easy. There are several ways you can do it. You can either clear coat using an airbrush lacquer, or you can clear coat using something like 2K or something like that. I'm just going to set this off to the side, and we're going to get to the slide now. What you want to do for this is, first off, put a little extra thinner in the cup here so I can clear it out. Another reason you want to wear gloves, you don't want to get solvents and cuts and everything, which is something that actually happened to me earlier today. Is I actually cut my hand on a 3D print that I was getting the support off of, because plastic that breaks is quite sharp. There you go, that's good enough. But yeah, you just want to shake up your bottle of paint, make sure it's all thoroughly mixed with the lacquer base and the pigments and everything. There's nothing worse than poorly mixed paint, because it's very inconsistent and it's just not going to do well. Just smack it against my palm, and yeah. One thing I do like to do while I paint is I actually put on the Bob Ross Twitch stream. That should be enough. That should be more than enough, actually. But either listening to the Bob Ross Twitch stream or something like Chilled Cows, Lo-Fi Hip Hop or whatever, because it's a very sort of relaxing thing to do, at least for me, painting-wise. I'm not sure if Wacom can say the same thing, but there is something nice about painting with an airbrush, because you can move very quickly and just do whatever. Now you also want to clear out your airbrush. I just put a squirt of the thinner in, and I have a t-shirt over here. Oops, I pulled my light over a little bit. I actually use a t-shirt, just an old ripped up one. And what I do is I open up the airbrush all the way and spray excess in there. Now, this is not an optimal setup, obviously. What you want to do is get a blowout can or whatever. And there are 3D printable ones you can make nowadays, like that are able to go on top of a mason jar or whatever. And basically what you want to do is just have some water or something in the blowout cup, and you can just, and it has a filter for any extra mist that comes up. I'm gonna swirl this around. Got a little bit on my glove, but that's okay. It dries very quickly because it's a lacquer and it's thinner based. Just pour a little bit of that in here. Now this one is filled up a little bit more. There we go. Again, we want to find a decent support to grab from. And this is more of a matte appearance because of how rough I went with the Scotch Brite. So it'll turn out more of a steel-ish silver. But there you go. It's coming out nicely. And one thing I did do is I did make sure to get rid of any sort of stickers and everything. Rubbing alcohol helped get rid of the sticker residue. And you just kind of want to go over the whole thing fairly evenly. I'm not too concerned about covering this recessed area because that is going to get covered by a dart holder. Because this thing with a good spring has a lot of power in it. And there you go. And again, like using an airbrush should be the standard for Nerf at this point. Which I know that Nerf, like Hasbro, uses airbrushes in the factories with some sort of stencil to just paint certain areas. And it's all really cool. Now, a neat thing about this silver or any silver really, is that its appearance is based entirely upon how you have your base coat. Now, if you want to have it look very interesting, you could put this over top of something like a purple, and it would be a very, very like light violet silver purple. And it's very interesting that way, because it's basically a clear coat with just silver particles in it. And I think we're good on this front. Going to close the needle back up. Now, this is where something like a airbrush stand would come in handy, but I do not have one, sadly. They are fairly easy to make though. You can either 3D print them or whatever. I'm just going to take the excess paint, pour it back into the bottle. Waste not, want not, especially with these paints that I have to wait a week or so for. Now, I could be using Testors enamels, but they don't always respond well to lacquer thinner. Like, they will separate somewhat, at least in my experience. Let me dump that a little bit out there. There we go. Probably not best to have the dripping eyedroppers over top of my my freshly painted pieces. So I'm just going to blow out into this t-shirt. Again, you want to have good ventilation. I have some windows open and stuff, and I have exhaust fans. Optimally, you would want a spray booth for this, where you can have an extractor fan blowing outdoors with a filter and everything, so you don't end up with paint particulates going back into your house or whatever. So, yeah. Though it's not always best to have a window open, because like humidity can mess with your paints, especially if it's a very picky sort of brand of paint or something. And yeah, now I'm going to just close this up, put it away. And yeah, I'll be back with you in a moment. And back because I had to swap to my other phone for camera use, because the other phone was actually dying. But yes, now we're going to be using a different color for this. It's because this is a very nice silver, so... Gotta love whenever a camera goes full of memory. But yeah, back to what I was saying, just light coats and everything. What you want to do is tape in between layers and such, using something like frog tape, which I've had mixed results with. Like if a paint is more fragile, you know, you'd want to... I actually will put it on the workspace first and then peel it back off to reduce its tackiness, but it'll still hold on good enough to be able to mask off the areas. Or you could always, you know, clear coat and then tape to really protect the paint and not really have to worry about the paint underneath. And yes, I've already gone back and clear coated these. I just use some Duplicolor wheel coat, which is a quite nice durable clear coat, and it gives a nice sort of look to it. And well, all I did for it to cure was I did it up, I let it dry for a few minutes, so it was slightly tacky but not going to really collect anything that would land on it. And then I set it outside and just let it kind of sit out there all day. And that is how it kind of ended up. So it's nice and hard. And I just left it outside for 8 hours or so, just so it could fully cure with the UV and the heat and everything from the sun, which is quite a nice thing about being in the south during the summer, is your clear coats will dry quite quickly. And yeah, all you'd really want to do now is assemble your blaster and see the final results. And yeah, let me know if there are anything. Let me know down below if there's anything that I can do to kind of clarify things if I wasn't quite so clear, because I was sort of rambling on in this video. But yeah, let me know. Drop a comment down below. If this was helpful, you maybe consider dropping me a few bucks a month over on my Patreon page, which I'll link down below. My Patreon supporters have had this video up for a day already for them. And yeah, as ever, my name is Valor. Thanks for watching.